3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
It's Monday. It's Monday. It really is. 7 o'clock. And that can mean only one thing. It's time for Reading the Signs, where me, Comedy John Ryan, and my comedian pals from all over the world are going to be talking about comedy, well-being, why we do it, how we cope. And that's where we need your help. We need you to send us your top tips for well-being. Be part of the show. Drop a comment in the box on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitter, on the mensradiostation.com website. It's going to be a great show, much better than last week. What we're trying to do is think exceptional, which, funnily enough, is the motto of WJ, our show sponsors. WJ are the UK's leading road marking and highway maintenance company. They're working with us, we're working with you. Let's get to it. Good evening. Welcome along to Reading the Signs. It's a special tonight. We'll go into that in a moment. But how's your day been? How's your week been? What have you been up to? What's going on in your world? Do let me know. Do let us know. We are here to talk about well-being, to talk about comedy, to talk about anything else that comes up that you guys may want to discuss. So if you've got any ideas, do let us know. Let us know by putting a little comment in the box below. We've got lots of ways that you can get in touch with us on YouTube, on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, or on the Men's Comedy, on the Men's Radio Station website. You can also just write to us, phone us if you want to. You'll find a way. Come on, you know you can do this. So, Mike, mate, Smashy, straight in there. I'm really sorry to hear about your dad. If you want to talk about it, mate, do please open up. Let us know. If you even want to come on, you can do that as well, my friend. It's an awful time when we lose a parent. I lost my dad, 9 years ago. Still talk to him a lot, Mike. So bereavement is one of the things that we kind of cover. It's easy to say to people, oh, men need to talk, but it's really hard, And Mike lost his dad last week, I think, or 2 weeks ago. And so, tough times. Quick shout out to Pete Murray. Where are you? Where are you, mate? Pete, let us know where you are. Dawn, my Dawny. She's in St. Martin, my favourite island in the whole wide world, apart from Ireland, of course. Oh, and I suppose the UK. So, as you know, every week we get someone from the world of comedy comes along and talks to me. We've had some fantastic guests, but tonight's guest, for me, one of the greats. When we sit down comfortably on the couch and we watch Live at the Apollo or 8 out of 10 Cats, we marvel at these superstar comics, not realizing that once upon a time, they had to step on a stage for the first time or very early in their career. And very often it was this guy, Geoff Whiting, who is my guest tonight, who gave them their first chance. And not always appreciated for it. I'm sure he won't like to admit it, but he knows it. A lot of people owe him a lot more than they give him credit for. He's one of the biggest promoters in the UK. He's also a really nice bloke with a great backstory and a very funny man, great comedian as well. So we're really looking forward to talking to him tonight. As I say, if you want to bring up any conversations, please do. Smashy's already brought up the thing about how he's lost his dad and he's missing his dad. Dawn McNulty out there in the Caribbean saying that she's so lucky to still have her dad. Sometimes I guess we don't appreciate what we've got until it's gone. I know that when Geoff had a bereavement recently, we had conversations about it, and I'm sure that will come up in the next hour. Pete Murray, great bit of advice. Make your bed every morning. That way you've achieved something before you leave your room. Absolutely superb, mate. One of my great sayings is that if you can get up in the morning, go to the toilet, make your bed, you are ahead of the game. You're doing better than most of the world. Anyhow, so you're listening to me, John Ryan, tonight on the Men's Radio Station, on the Dulux Radio Network, on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all them young people things, I call them. But for us grown-ups, it's just going to be two blokes talking for the next hour. And it's an absolute privilege for me to have this guy on. Very supportive of me when I first started out. And someone that I consider to be a mate and I'll have a beer with any time. So with that in mind, please welcome to the show, Mr. Geoff Whiting. Geoff, how you doing, bruv?
Hello. All right, John. Yeah, not too bad at all, man.
It's nice to see a man with a cap, with a hat on.
Yeah, I often wear
indoors.
this. Yes, this is my I haven't had time to wash my hair for about 5 days hat. Yeah. But I do like a hat. I mean, I quite like this one. It's apparently it's a Stetson. I didn't think it was, but somebody told me this the other day. So
a little bit of a fisherman's outfit look going on there, Geoff. You got the old zip-up jumper and the cap, all looking good.
Yeah.
What have you been doing today, mate? What's a day in Geoff Whiting's life?
Well, today I was driving back from a gig, which I did last night, but so I'm in the car a lot. I mean, you know about that traveling around the gigs. And then I work on the laptop a lot because obviously, like everybody, I suppose, after COVID. But so, working on the laptop, looking at emails, working out, booking people for gigs and trying to get gigs for acts that I'm looking after and all the rest, so all that stuff.
And trying to get your own gigs as well.
Say again?
And I said, so you look after acts.
Yeah.
Trying to get work for yourself as well.
Yeah.
There's a lot of juggling going on there, mate.
Yeah, I mean, it's things are quite reasonable at the moment. I think, obviously went through a nightmare period, but they're coming back now, the gigs. And so being in that business and looking for gigs and also booking gigs, it's coming back. I mean, during COVID, I lost some clubs, but I'm sure everybody who books promoters lost clubs. And obviously very hard to get any acts you're looking after work when there's no work whatsoever apart from Zoom calls.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I'm feeling it. I think the feeling now is quite positive. Yeah.
What was you like as a kid, Geoff? Was you funny? Were you naturally bubbly, funny guy?
That's a good question. Probably like all comics, not all comics. You can't generalize like that. Probably like a lot of comics. When I'm amongst people, I think when I'm amongst people, I'd even count one-to-one conversations. I would say I'm quite bubbly, quite funny, yeah. But there again, in my own time, if I'm just by myself at home or driving the car, whatever, a bit more reflective. Obviously, you're not going to be funny by yourself. But what I mean is, do you know what I mean? When I get involved with people, generally, yeah, I'm quite a bubbly,
Was you like that as a kid? Was it from an early age? Did you have the? Because you are a funny bloke, man. You're a great compliment and very engaging.
John.
So, did that come from natural, or did you have to learn it?
I think probably my parents encouraged me a little bit. My dad was unusual because he had a Super 8 camera, which was in the 1960s, 7 or 8, whatever it was quite not that many people had them really, or they had them. But what he did is he was a bit of a technical geek, so he recorded the sound and spliced the sound onto a color film. So I've got color, what you might call videos now of me aged 6.
Wow.
Which of course now would be completely normal. But to make those when he did was pretty unusual because he spliced the sound on. I can't quite, he explained it to me numerous times, but he had to splice the sound onto the film and then run it through, and then it made a color video with sound. But I remember because he was doing the sound, he used to tell me and my sister to keep talking. There's actually a bit anybody who knows me will find this funny because I talk a lot, but there's actually a film of me aged about 6 in the back garden where he's trying to obviously video me doing things, but he knows he wants to get the sound on, so he keeps saying, yeah, okay, what about a nursery rhyme? And then my sister arrives and I said, Dad, it says we've got to keep talking, and I think it's stuck with me ever since.
Brilliant. So is there just the two of you and your sister, or is there more than the two of you?
No, it's just me and my sister, and we could get onto that whenever you like. But
youngest or the eldest, mate?
Yeah.
Are you the youngest or the eldest?
I was the eldest, yeah, and my sister passed away, unfortunately. So
I remember you saying before about that. That's awful.
So,
and Mike Smashing McGrain, I don't know if you know him. He does some stuff out at Southend. He just buried his dad, and so had a tough time of it. And I was saying before you came on here that I remember when you had a bereavement and talking to you, and my dad's been gone years, mate. You never get over it.
I remember that.
Yeah, never get over it, mate. And as for men, I'm sorry if it sounds sexist, but how do I call up someone who books me for work and go, hey mate, I'm sorry about your loss. If you need to chat, give me a shout.
Yeah.
It's not easy, is it?
It's not. No, I mean, it's like though, in the comedy business, comics are, I think they're quite supportive. It depends whether you broach it. I think they're quite supportive, really. I mean, if you broach it, it's up to, if you broach the subjects, and people get talking to you and there's time to talk, you're not about to go on stage or whatever, then they're pretty supportive. I mean, not every comic wants to know about your personal life and whatever, but if you do tell people, the ones, and obviously, it's like, John, some comics you get to know better, you just get to know them better. Yeah. And you just know you can talk to those guys, and others you don't know as well. But I must say, I've had I had some amazing support when my dad died, because he was the last, because there were four of us, me and my mum and dad and my sister, and they've all died. So I'm the only one left. So my mother died first in 2012, and I had a lot of support then. And then my sister died in 2014, unexpectedly young. Well, she was 50, but young, and then my dad passed away last year. So, but to be fair, people who know me, the comics, know me, as well as friends, they were very supportive, especially when my dad went, because they knew he was the last, basically, of my family, apart from me. So I had a lot of support. I mean, at my dad's funeral, I had 3 comedians there, who I invited, who I would say, and a couple of other people in the business, because I felt that they were close enough people.
Yeah, the mates,
Yeah.
I try to explain this to people all the time, that I may not see you for a year, but if I saw you tomorrow, I'll have a beer with you and we'll have a chat like I saw you yesterday.
Absolutely, John.
And that's kind of unique, isn't it, to our industry, I think. So
yeah,
I met someone, because as you know, I do cabaret on the cruise ships, and I met someone 2 weeks ago who I hadn't seen in 10 years. Yeah. And we were just like it was yesterday. However, 10 years ago, I had 8 weeks away with him in the Caribbean, basically. Yeah. We had, and it's those little car journeys, road trips, and that shared it. Nothing better than a gig where you're in a car with 3 people and all 3 of you have died on your backsides. And
absolutely right.
And it's that.
Absolutely right. I mean, it's weird. I mean, as you know, because you were just referring to, I've been on trips away, even just once for say 2 or 3 nights with a comic, and that creates like a bond. It's really strange. I mean, I can remember people I've been on. Yeah, obviously there's some I've been on 5 or 6 trips with, but there's probably 1 or 2 comics I've only ever been on 1 trip with. But because of doing that trip, I think what happens is you do sit down and talk more, because you get a bit of daytime. You have a coffee, you have a walk. I remember Gordon Southern. I've only been on 1 trip ever with Gordon Southern, even though he's travelled all over the place. I've only done 1 trip with Gordon. We went away for 2 nights to Norway, and we just had time in the daytime to go on a walk, which we did for about 2 or 3 hours, and get a coffee. And he told me all about his personal life, his relationships, all this stuff. I told him about my stuff. And now I think of him as like, if I bumped into him again tomorrow, I'd have a long, in-depth conversation with him. Whereas before that trip, maybe I wouldn't have felt I knew him as well. So it's amazing. You form these bonds all the time, actually. I don't think people realise how close it can be.
No, it can be. So when you left school, what did you do when you left? Were you academic at school, Geoff?
I was quite relatively in the middle. In the middle, I'd say, compared with some comics who went to Cambridge and Oxford, as we know. I'm sure some of them did.
Yeah.
I got my A-levels. I got 3 A-levels, and I went to university in Exeter to study drama. But I dropped out of uni, so that's where it all went sideways. Didn't like it at all. Just didn't take to it, which is weird, because at 6th form college, I was life and soul of the party. I knew everybody. I used to do a lot of acting. I went to school with Jeremy Hardy, so obviously Jeremy was a sort of lifelong friend. So it was tough when he passed away. But I went to school with Jeremy, so he was a year below me. But we were both in what you call the upper 6th, they called it then, at the same time. And we used to actually write together. We even did a couple of sketches as a double act, me and him together at college in about 1978, 79. And when we did school plays, things like Uncle Vanya or The Cherry Orchard or a bit of Shakespeare, Jeremy and I were always both in the school plays together, so we became pretty close friends. And I used to go and see him at the Tunnel Club In 1982, I went to see him at the Tunnel Club, which is a fearsome club. It makes Up the Creek look quite laid back. And so anyway, I went to university, and after a year, I just didn't. I thought, no, this is not. It wasn't the coursework; it was the. I didn't like.
What did you study? What did you sign up to study, Geoff?
I was studying drama and English.
Okay.
But it was just I think my old friends were so close. I had such a good lot of really close friends that I'd been with all the way through school, because I was at the same school from the first year to the upper sixth. So I was at the same school as Jeremy went to, Farnham Boys Grammar School. I went to, and so did Jeremy Hardy. So we were there all the way through. So I was at school with Jeremy for 6 years, and my own age group 7 years. So I think what happened with me is friends I'd known had come through from the age of 11 to 18. I went to university and I just didn't. I thought I'd gel straight away because I'm an outgoing person, but I didn't. I kept wanting to go back to Farnham where I lived and see my old school friends. And in the end, I bailed out and I left uni, got a job as a van driver. But when I got my breakthrough, I played in bands then. And I was a singer and bass player in a band, and we got a record deal when I was 20. So, which sounds great, but
no, I think the photos, mate, are hilarious, and the fact that you post them, again, testament to you that we go. You know, we've all had some bad hairstyles, Geoff, haven't we? We've all kind of.
We have,
but go for it. So, did you want to be a musician? Was that the aim?
Yeah. Well, to be honest with you, John, I think it was. I really wanted to be an actor, which is what I always wanted to do. Ironically, the one thing I haven't really done properly, but obviously anything related. So the music, I could play the guitar, I could sing, and I wrote songs. I don't know how good they were, but I formed a band, and as I said, we'd been going since I was about. Only for a year, maybe. I formed the band when I was 19. About a year in, we were playing a lot of local gigs and we were doing well, and we got offered a deal, but only an independent record label, which, as you know, even now it's the same. You know, an independent label isn't quite the same as, you know, it's being signed, but there are different variations of being signed. But having said that, we got a single out, and although that single wasn't a hit, it gave us a bit of profile, and in the local area, you know, we did gigs and people came because we had a single out. But then our biggest breakthrough is we got a support tour with Hazel O'Connor, and that was because that was complete luck. Well, that was luck. That was one of those things that happens. We went to see a show. She was playing the Brighton Dome, December 1980, and we went down there and we took our single with us, a copy of the single with us, on this vague idea we'd somehow meet her or one of her band and be given the single. We had no idea how this might happen. We had no idea. But when we got there, which we got there at least an hour and a half before the show, we could hear some noise from inside, some music. And we said to this couple of guys, look, can we go in and just watch the sound check? And they said, well, no, I mean, you know. We said, we got tickets. They said, no, but you can't. We said, well, look, we're in a band, and we brandished this single. Okay. And the guy was a nice guy. He said, well, I'll ask the manager. And a guy came out and he looked at us, and our photos were on the single. Just by chance. I mean, on the back, not the front. But on the back, fortunately, was literally a photo of me with Geoff Whiting underneath, a photo of another guy, Dave O'Brien, their names underneath. And so it was almost like an ID. So we showed him the single, and he looked at it and he said, well, obviously you're in a band, you're serious. Yeah, you're not. Okay, I'll lead you up to the back. You can sit in the back 3 seats right at the back, and you can watch the sound check. And then you've got to come back out and then come in. While we were watching the sound check, the support band were doing their sound check. And the lead singer was doing all this, you know, no, I can't, you know, he was doing all this and he was saying, no, I can't do it. I can't. And we had no idea what was really going on, but we could see there was a bit of talking on stage, and he was going, no, it's gone, you know. And then we heard a conversation on stage from a distance, which gave the impression that the support band weren't going to do this gig. So a guy walked right up from the stage, right up through the auditorium towards the back, carrying one of these little silver briefcases that you see. And we just thought, he's got to be their manager or Hazel O'Connor's manager or somebody. This is the only chance we'll get. So I sprung forward, being the lead singer, with the single in my hand, and said, excuse me, is there a problem? He said, well, yeah, we've got some problems, but what's it got to do with you? I said, well, we're a band. The three of us, we're a band, and we're here, and this is our single. And he said, right, okay. He said, could you get your equipment here in an hour's time? And we said, oh, wow. We'll do whatever you need. We'll do anything. He said, well, yeah, the support band have pulled out. The lead singer's lost his voice. Yeah, I haven't really got a lot of options, he said, but I can't just put anybody on. Give me that single. This is when it was all vinyl. So he disappeared. And about a minute later, 2 minutes later, we heard our single playing through the speakers of the club, of the venue, quite loudly. And there was about a minute of it, and then it stopped. And then he came around and said, okay, get your equipment here and now. You can do the support. There was, I think, 2,500 tickets have been sold. But that support band who pulled out were Duran Duran.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Before Planet Earth came out January 81. This was December 1980. So at the time, nobody had heard of them. But it was Duran Duran that pulled out, and we replaced them. And we used their drum kit and their bass stack and their speaker and their guitar amps, and just brought our own guitars in. And the drummer brought a snare drum and a couple of sticks.
It just shows, doesn't it, that you can be that close to. Yeah. So last week we had. Do you remember Griffiths, the King of Spain?
Yes, I do. Yeah.
I had him on last week, and I'm still in touch with him. And he was in a band, and they got a recording deal, and they're great. And it's all these things about what is it? You know, you can have all the talent, the look, the image, the material. It still doesn't work.
Yeah.
What you know? Is music harder than comedy?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think probably as hard, maybe even harder. I mean, because I was in bands after that, without giving a massively comprehensive life story. I was in a band, to wind forward a bit, that band, we did the support tour. So what happened is we did that gig with Hazel O'Connor. She made the effort to come out and watch some of our set, and the people in her band came out and watched quite a lot of the set. And as a result, we were off the next support tour, the whole tour. So January to March 81, by which time Duran Duran had pulled out because they were going to be doing better, and they had an inkling that they were going to be doing well with Planet Earth, so they pulled out. We then did the January, so we did the following support tour to Duran Duran. We did January to April, whatever. So we played about 17 dates with her, including the Rainbow in Victoria, which is not there anymore. And we played mainly big uni rooms, maybe 1,000, 2,000 seat rooms, and some of them were big concert halls, you know, Portsmouth, whatever, Guildhall, Brighton Dome, those places. So anyway, but we still didn't make it. We did that. We still didn't really make it big. We had that tour. But anyway, eventually I went on and played in a couple of other bands. And I had a record deal I was in 3 different bands after that, all with record deals, none of which quite made it. Band called Strange Arrangement, which I was the lead singer in that band, and we were so close. I mean, we had amazing photo sessions done. I say at the time, John, hard to believe now, but we were quite a good-looking band. You know, those days. This is my youth. We were good. So we had photos done, and the other 4 guys, there were 5 of us, that would match any Duran Duran photo, only because the way it was photographed and the way we all looked. And we had a very good single out, and it was produced by a guy who'd already produced a couple of massive hits already for other bands. And it was released, though, on a slightly smaller label, and they just didn't quite have the distribution and have the PR you needed. And it was single of the week in some magazine. It was some DJ said it's one of the best things he'd heard. Another review said one of the best pop singles of 1984, but didn't make it. So, as you say, from what you were saying about, you know, previous guests, I think music's as difficult. It could be even more difficult because I think the market's even more flooded than comedy. And comedy, as you know, now is quite flooded, but music is even more flooded. So many people want to write a song in their bedroom and do what Billie Eilish and her brother have done, whatever. So I think music's even harder. Yeah,
it's interesting. The creativity where you find that outlet. Did you ever have a proper job though after you left school or after you left?
Thanks, John. Yeah, I'm glad you asked about that because I'm glad you asked because I did. Yes, yes. What happened is that in the I had a period where about 5, no, it's longer than that. It might have been 6 years. I was a sales rep, so had the suit. But it was funny. My one nod to rebellion is I had long hair at the time. And my one nod to my rebellious nature was that I got this job, and I did well as a sales rep. But anyway, I got the company car, had to wear the suit, but I had long hair and I tied it back in a ponytail. I mean, very neatly I had. But anyway, the boss of the company hated it, but I checked the employment law, and so had he, and he couldn't sack me unless a customer complained. And unbelievably, somehow I managed 6 years without any customers complaining about my hair. and he'd checked. He said if he had a complaint from a customer saying, we don't like this guy, we can't, buy products from him, he's untidy or his hair's too. But I got on very well with my customers, and nobody put a complaint in. And he was so annoyed because he kept saying, "Just cut your hair." I said, "No, I don't want to cut it. I'm doing the job. My figures are good. I'm doing decent figures. I'm, bringing in plenty of business, and so it's not an issue." He said, "Yeah, I really don't like it." I said, "Well, I'm doing the job," and so eventually I left the job. But it was funny because the whole time I was there, he was constantly irked at any meeting we used to have, where we'd have a little meeting for 2 hours or go to, especially if you went to one of those, those conferences, those not conferences, exhibitions where you had to have a display stand somewhere, and I'd be there with my ponytail tied back in a suit. He'd be so anyway. But I did have a proper job. I was a sales rep for 6 years, and I was selling food to delicatessens.
What was the food? Anything we may know? Anything we may be eating?
Yeah, you might. Well, I was selling things like let me think. There was farmhouse cakes. They've gone by the board, but there were certain cookies I still see. I'm trying to remember the name of those. Village cookies, I think they were called. They're still. Oh, the other thing, of course, yes, Phileas Fogg tortilla chips,
mate.
And kettle chips. We got kettle chips. This is important info. We got kettle chips when nobody had ever heard of kettle chips, and we had a meeting at the office, which we used to have once a week with new products. And he said, right, he put a load of kettle chips on the table. I said, right, this is a new product from the company in Norwich, I think it was, kettle chips. And we said, right, he said, they're extra thick potato crisp, try them. So we all eating them with cups of tea and coffee. And then he said, right, you've got to sell these in bulk, 3 flavors or whatever it was. And we were selling kettle chips right at the start, where I'd go into a place and say, what the hell is this? I said, kettle chips. I said, never heard of them. I said, well, honestly. Wow. So you're talking to somebody who discovered Jimmy Carr and also discovered kettle chips.
Kettle chips, mate. You know what? You can put that on your tombstone. That's got to be. So, how did the comedy come about then? What made you decide to venture into that?
Yeah, that's well, the reason basically it happened because I was made redundant, actually, because after I left that employee where I had the longer hair, I moved on and I went to another company. So same business, selling snacks, selling food, selling tortilla chips and whatever, that sort of thing. And I was, again, company car, all the rest. And the truth of the matter is, if I hadn't been made redundant, I would never have been a comedian. I'd probably still be a sales rep, because although I wanted to be a singer and that hadn't quite worked, and I wanted to be an actor that hadn't quite worked, and a performer, which had worked to a degree but stopped, I was sort of settled in this job in the end and thought, okay, I can do it. I'm earning money. I've got a company car. I'm doing all right. But basically, the company went to liquidation suddenly. Not quite sure why. Maybe they were overspending. I don't know anything about the background of the company. But the point is, we were called into a meeting on a Monday morning after I'd been there about 2 years, and to the actual office, which is up in Harrow, and they said, awfully sorry, the company's going into liquidation. Can you please leave the car keys? Wow. Leave the car, not just the keys. Leave the car and the keys. We'll pay you a month's salary plus a couple of weeks extra for the inconvenience of losing your job, and a train fare home. So and we were told on the spot. So we were given a check
what am I going to do next?
Whatever. Yeah. And I was just suddenly unemployed, and I was living in Bath by that point. Because my girlfriend at the time was at university in Bath, and I'd moved down there and got a bedsit, really, a 1-bedroom flat. And really, there's 2 reasons I started comedy. One is because I saw an advert in the Daily Telegraph, of all things, which is a paper I never even bought usually, but I bought a copy that day because there was something in it I wanted to read or whatever. Had a big advert, and it was the Open Mic Award, which you might remember. Yeah. The Avalon Open Mic Award, which was it was Avalon sponsored by the Telegraph or whatever.
What year was that?
So
what year was that?
It was joint venture, and it said, are you funny? Could you be a comedian? Well, a couple of weeks before that, I'd been having a drink with a guy I used to be in a band with, and he said to me, Geoff, God, you don't have to talk a lot, man. He said, no offense. I mean, he said, in a good way, it's nice to have a beer with you because you're always chatting. But he said to me, if you could be paid for talking, just do that. I said, well, how can I be paid for talking? He said, well, if you could be paid, radio, he said. I said, I don't know. He said, because you talk so much, if you could get paid for talking, that's the dream job for you. Then he said, week and a half, 2 weeks later, I saw this advert, could you be funny? Are you? And I thought, I've got nothing to lose. I was on the dole on benefits. I'd never been on benefits. I was on the dole. I've been on the dole about 6 months. I've been looking for a job. I was signing on, but I was looking. I was going to interviews for jobs as a sales rep. But 6 months on the dole. By that point, I was behind my rent. I didn't really have a mobile phone. I didn't have a car, and I was in danger of my landline being cut off. And I thought, well, the only advantage I've got is I'm at rock bottom. I can't go any lower, really. I mean, not much lower. I'm pretty well at the bottom. So if I try this and I'm rubbish, what difference is it going to make?
What year was that, Geoff?
That was 97.
97. Okay.
In fact, that was probably, was it? Yeah, that was 97. So I just thought, if I'd had something to lose, John, you know how life works. I probably thought, if I'd had the job still, and we know comics, we both know comics like John Bishop and Rod Gilbert, who had good day jobs when they started and had to make decisions about whether to do comedy or not. But I wasn't in that position. I was in a position where I thought, I'm either going to keep signing on and keep applying for jobs as a sales rep and keep being behind the rent and be skin, or not. So if I do this, as I said, I felt I had nothing to lose. So, and you had to record a cassette. I don't know if you remember this era.
Okay.
You had to record 2 minutes, I think, or 2.5 minutes of your material into a cassette player with your own microphone, no audience, nothing, and send it to them in the post. That's what you had to do. And so I recorded 2.5 minutes of me doing jokes, which I can even remember some of those jokes, which weren't great, of course, on reflection, but at the time were reasonable, but not amazing, adequate. And sent the tape off, and then got a message saying you're in the heat, and the heat was going to Bar Spa Uni around the corner. And what they used to do, Avalon used to do, is they'd put you on a show with an amazing bill, actually. So they'd put you on a show with a professional show that they were already putting on at the uni as the 5-minute spot, and then they would get the acts to judge. They just say to the acts, do you mind looking at this guy or girl and telling us, are they good enough for the semi-finals? Simple as that. So I was on with Andy Robinson comparing.
Wow. Yep.
Joe Enright opening and Martin Moore closing.
Wow.
And I was the 5-minute spot in the middle, and their job was just to watch me from the side. And those guys, all of whom I've seen since, especially Joe Enright and Martin Moore, who I'm still very good friends with, they obviously said, yeah, he's good enough for a semi-final. Yeah, I mean, yeah. So I got to the semi-final, but the semi-final was brutal because, like a lot of competitions, to be fair, it was 10 down to 1. I believe it was 10. It might have been 12, but I think it was 10 down to 1. So I didn't even know that till I got there, because I'm not great at reading paperwork.
Yeah.
It was all sent through the post then as well. So I think all I looked at is the address, the time, and how long I had to do. When I arrived and we were all around the side, 10 of us, that's when the guy came around and said, right, this is the order. And then he said, right, we'll announce the winner tonight at the end after some judging. Obviously, the winner will go through. And I said, the winner? He said, yeah. And he said, yeah. I said, is it the first 3? He said, no, it's just the winner. I said, nobody else. He said, no, it's just the winner. He said, we're doing these all around the country. This is just one of them. So anyway, suffice to say, I didn't win, so I didn't go through. Can't remember who won. Oh, Mike Toombs, a bloke called Mike Toombs won that.
I remember Mike Toombs.
Yeah, he won that. But they did say to me at the end, you're allowed to enter this 2 years in a row. So if you'd like to enter again next year, that's fine. And to cut a long story short, because I always talk too much, I entered the next year, 98, and I reached the final. So then I did get to the semi-final. I did win the semi-final, and I got to the final at the Edinburgh Festival in 1998, which was at the Gilded.
And who won that?
Blue? Yeah. Oh no, it may have been. Can't remember the room it was in. Might have been Gilded.
Do you remember?
Oh no, it might have been the Pleasance. Anyway, it was one of those. Yeah.
Who won it?
The winner was a bloke called Mark Hayes, who is a guy who never went on to be a well-known stand-up. I think it was Mark Hayes, or it was somebody Hayes. That's why I don't know. But third was Hal Cruttenden.
Wow. And
the people that weren't placed were Stephen Merchant, Stephen Grant, obviously Dan Antopolsky.
Wow.
Actually, Dan Antopolsky was the runner-up. Dan Antopolsky was the runner-up, and Hal Cruttenden came third. And Stephen Merchant was in it, it wasn't placed. And Stephen Grant was in it, wasn't placed. And I was in it. Dougie Dunlop was in it. A couple of others I can't remember now. But
just a different world, isn't it? Just a different world. And then the following year, because I had my first stand-up gig in 99. 99.
Yeah.
And it's like start of June '99. And then on my 4th gig, I went along with Hilary Jago to watch Johnny Camden in the Daily Telegraph.
Oh yeah, I remember him.
So and an actor dropped out, and they asked me, did I want to do it? And I said, "Oh, I'll do it." So I went and did it, and it was great fun. Johnny Camden went through to the final, and then I met you actually at the final, right? And honestly, and I had only done about 6 gigs. I didn't know who you were, but I was sitting in the front row with Hills Jago, and then she'd gone off and went to see someone, and there was me and 3 empty seats, and you and I think it was Chaz and 2 women.
Oh, that's right, Chaz. Yeah,
we're looking around the seats, and I said, "Yeah, mate, you can sit here if you want." And the first conversation I ever had with you was, "I appreciate this, mate. Are you a comic?" And I said, "Yeah." You went, "Give me a call, and I'll give you some gigs." And I said,
yeah,
You don't need to do that." And that's how we met. And
yeah. I
Hills
remember
went,
you gigging for me early days.
Hills
I remember
went,
you gigging for
that's
me.
Geoff Whiting. You've made a good contact there. I went, "No, just a bloke with a woman. I wanted him to have a nice view." She went, "No, you need to press that, network that, get that, make that contact." I went, "I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that." And it's funny, since then, I've still not done that with people where I meet people and go, "Oh, look, give me some work, and here's my CV, and here's my," yeah. And then
But the thing is, though, John, is that you are known by almost every comic. Almost every comic knows you. So, and you've done some great work as a comic. And it's like with me, I'm better known, as you know, really, as a promoter and a booker. I mean, some new acts, especially, understandably, because they're probably given my name and said he's got some gigs, don't even understand that I'm a comedian at all. I mean, they just think I'm a booker or a promoter or an agent. So, and I've never, broken into the big time as a comic. I mean, I've done some interesting work. It's like when you do interesting things, but in terms of public profile, people they might actually know me more, or they might actually think, I think that guy, has run a gig in, wherever it is, Surrey for 25 years or 23 years, whatever it is. I think they're more likely to think that. But I think it's great because I still love performing stand up, and I still like writing it. But like you, I like the other aspects of comedy.
There's more to it than just going on stage and making people laugh. You got to
and also, John, really, you're a bit ahead of the curve. I mean, because I had there was a panel show, not panel shows, a small. It was held in just one of the Gestatonics venue in, I'd say, 8 years ago, something like that. And there was a panel which included Mick Perrin was on the panel, and one of the female agents, not Hannah Chambers, but one of the other ones from one of the large agencies. And it was a little panel of 4 people in the industry. And the debate was about mental health of comedians. And somebody mentioned, not to Mick Perrin, but to this lady, and I can't remember, it was, I mustn't get it wrong because it's, it's important to get the names right. But she headed up a big agency, but it wasn't just about her. It was about the general principle. And they said, somebody from the audience, because it was audience questions, Q&A. And somebody from the audience said, if somebody is running a really big agency with, say, 30 acts, of which, say, maybe 10 are on television regularly, why don't they have a mental health professional attached to that company full-time? Full-time. Who is there full-time for those guys to ring and talk to about any mental health aspects anytime they want, the same as much as they would bring somebody to ask about doing a gig or getting something in the diary.
Well, it's just
the person they asked said, "Well, we've never heard of the idea. I mean, nobody's ever suggested it. I've never heard of the idea." Yeah.
Well, the thing is that, so when I did my first solo show in Edinburgh in 2003, I won a little award, and I didn't invite any industry people. All I invited were people from the NHS, from Bupa, from Nuffield, from private health companies, and then people from LBC and a couple of newspapers. And from that show, I got a newspaper column, a radio show, and started using comedy to raise awareness of health. So I very early on realised that I'm not getting into this marathon race with 10,000 others. Like you said, Stephen Merchant, runner-up in '98 in the Telegraph. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
You know, he's one of the greatest comics this country's produced,
Yeah.
I think. And yet, he could have just fallen by the wayside. If he tried to do straight stand-up, we would never have heard of him. Ricky Gervais, again, didn't set the world on fire with his stand-up.
No.
But now he's gone off and come back. Even Rod Gilbert struggled, really struggled with stand-up when it started. But it's people like yourself that are instrumental in helping people to develop not just their comedy careers, but develop as people. And there's only there's a handful of you. And it's interesting for me when people would say, well, your agency, which we'll come on to, should have like a mental health professional as well. But actually, your responsibility surely is just to get work for your acts and make sure that they're okay to go and do it. But ultimately, the responsibility falls on them, their friends and their peers, I would suggest.
I agree. And the thing is, you know, John, because of what's happened in my case, I mean, I had a divorce. So it was a bit of a roller coaster. I had my mother passed away in, say, 2012. 2014, my sister died. 2015, I got divorced. And then last year, my father died. So I did have a wife and two parents and a sister. And within 7-8 years, I lost all of it. So, but having said that, but it makes me very aware. I was already quite aware because my sister had mental health problems. She was bipolar, and she was had issues her whole life, serious mental health problems with bipolar and associated problems. So I was aware of that, and I was sort of aware of mental health issues before I've had all these bereavements. But my point is, with my comics, the comics I look after as an agent, I'm really, really happy to talk to them anytime. They know that about anything if they want to share it. But of course, you don't want to ask people to share things they don't. It's up to them. But if they've got anything they want to talk to me about that's not about comedy, they know that I can talk to them. And certainly, I'll even meet for. Sometimes one of my acts will say, "Can you meet me for a coffee for an hour or two in London?" And if I'm in London in the daytime already, I'll say yes, and we'll sit and talk about stuff that's nothing to do with comedy. And I'm happy to if they want to share that.
Yeah, that's that should be. And I mean, you've got some great acts on your roster. I think Andy White. I think he's a phenomenal writer and performer. Aideen, I get on with so well.
I love Aideen, yeah.
Recommend her everywhere I go. Gary Coleman, again, and lots of others as well. But and Addy, of course. Addy Vanderbilt's one of yours.
And Addy,
you know, and so to have someone like Addy who's been on the circuit for 25 years, and happy to have you represent him, that's testament to you. So what is it, do you think, with your Mirth control, with the agency, what is it that you think makes acts want you to represent them? Why do they trust Geoff Whiting?
I mean, it depends on where they're coming from, I suppose. It's so, for someone like Matt Price, who I now represent, and I've represented before.
Yeah, good lad.
And then he went off for a period and did other things and then came back, and he's really highly motivated and really, really keen to push on to the next level. But Matt rang me and asked me personally and said, I want to come in. I didn't approach him, and that's not because I don't rate him. It's because I didn't know what he was doing. But Matt said to me, you're just the guy I trust. Sometimes it's trust because some people want someone they trust, you know, and maybe that also includes the fact you can talk about personal things as well as comedy, but someone they feel they can trust in terms of that they feel comfortable with and feel that is and sometimes being a fellow comic, they prefer. I mean, some people would say it's a disadvantage. You know, they may prefer an agent who's only ever been an agent and has got a good name, you know, and has got lots of work for well-known people. But other people like the fact you're a comic because they think Geoff knows how it works. He's been a comic. He's paid his dues as a comic. He's done the gigs. He understands if I say, you know, this room is a difficult room or it's a good room or a bad room. He knows, and I can talk to him about how I feel. Or if one of my acts has a bad gig or a great gig, they often text me straight away, or message me, WhatsApp me, and say, Geoff, I've just come off. I've had a fantastic gig. Or they'll send me a message saying, I tried some stuff, didn't work. You know, could you speak to me in the morning? Have a quick call. I just want to have a talk through what I did, and you know, because I want to talk to you about it, and as a comic, and just say, you know, just sort of debrief what I did last night. And with an agent that's not a comic, they can't do that. to the degree. So I think that's one of the reasons. I mean, obviously, I've got some clubs. I've got clubs in various parts of the country, and I can
parts of the world. You had, didn't you? You still
well,
got
yes.
overseas,
Although they
yeah?
haven't, they've taken longer to come back, John.
Well,
Unfortunately, they have come back
they'll
now.
come
Some
back.
of them, but I mean, so I can give them a chance to play in Romania or Hungary or wherever it is. But also, I can give them, a certain number of gigs around the country that are very good rooms to work in. Most of the 90% very good rooms, and also the fact that that I can guarantee them some work, which is bound to be a practical consideration. But I think most of them that I've got, when I think about it, I think what it is, John, really, is that I believe in them. I mean, I haven't got anybody I don't believe in, and I think they know that. So, Matt Price knows I believe in him. It's just that I didn't know he was looking for an agent, but that's why he rang me. But Alan Francis, knows that I believe in him. That
Alan Francis, for people who don't know him, he's one of the greatest writers. I think he's a fantastic performer. But apart from that, he's a good bloke, and
he's great.
You seem to have good blokes, and it's funny that I've met people through my career, like I say, meeting yourself, meeting Hills, meeting Geoff Stevenson, who
Jeff's a good guy, isn't he?
Awesome bloke, and
he's
made a
an
really
interesting
good point.
guy. He's a great guy. He's done a lot of stuff, hasn't he?
Yeah, we fear people accusing us of stealing material, but I actually stole his career because he described himself to me when I first met him as a midstream comic. So you can do the alternate clubs and the mainstream clubs. And I thought, you know what, I want to do that.
Yeah.
And Geoff, when I said to him, I want to do that, rather than say, no, you can't, he actually helped me. So I wouldn't be doing the cruise ships if it wasn't for Geoff and a lot of the corporate work as well. And he's and you put that man on any stage and he will work. And I wanted to be like that.
Yeah.
And
no, you're right about that, John. I mean, as I say, there are some comics, as you know, we both know, I suppose, that maybe, tailor their act and, or naturally it's the way they write, that maybe are a little bit more left field and off the wall, that wouldn't suit every club. And there are some that are maybe a bit too mainstream. But you're right, Geoff can play any room. He gigged for me quite recently. And he was very good. I mean, he took a short notice booking from me. And I think it was only about £120. But he said to me, Geoff, we've had COVID.
Yeah.
It's a gig in the diary. I'll take that.
Yep.
And that club had, I'd say on the whole, it had Phil Nichol had done it, Ian Stone had done it, was, guys that you might think were a bit more alternative. The feedback from the club, they said that Geoff Stevenson was fantastic.
He'll work anywhere.
So,
and it does make me
then
to kind of come around it in a long-winded way. So what Geoff has, I think, is he's got a work ethic and he's also very good.
Yeah.
But he also understands people. And you are like that, right? You're like
well,
that.
hopefully.
So when I asked you to go to Germany, if we went to Hamburg, and the guy afterwards went, this guy's amazing. Why haven't I ever heard of him? And he went, well, yeah, because there's a lot of amazing but off stage, he was so helpful, so positive. And I think I probably sent about 5 comics who also are promoters to do that gig.
Yeah.
And you and one other are the only 2 who didn't try and take the gig. And it was just, I said to the guy, yeah, but Geoff's not like that. He wouldn't, he's going to do the gig. He'll appreciate it. So you have this reputation then, I think, of being like, a grafter. You roll up your sleeves. You're working for your acts. You're trying to push your own career. You're also very positive around people. And yet, at the same time, we know that you've lost people. So what you've been through would break most people. How does Geoff Whiting stay positive and strong? What's the secret, mate?
Well, the honest answer is, John, sometimes with difficulty. It depends. I mean, I think really the comedy is when I say the comedy, I'm covering all bases, performing and managing and people and booking clubs and promote, everything I do. I think that's the answer, really. I mean, I must say that's pulled me through, really, in my case. I mean, I can go to gigs, and I'm sure this applies to a lot of comics. I don't think it's just me, whether they're promoters or just comics or bookers or whatever, or agents. But I've driven to gigs where I've had to really force myself into the car, where I've thought, just don't want to do this. Which is odd, because some of them may think, well, wait a minute, it's great. You go on stage, you get paid, but, you might be able to relate to this. I'm sure a lot of comics can, on a certain day of the week, it's raining, you look outside, you're not feeling good, and it's such a mood lifter, comedy, for the performers. I mean, hopefully for the audience, which I think it is. But I've driven to gigs and say it's even an hour and 15 minutes, hour and 20 minutes, feeling fairly depressed all the way there, and possibly even dwelling on things in my head about bereavements and bad things. And I get there and I see the other comics around the back, and I have a bottle of water, and we all get talking. And then I watch, if I'm, comparing, I'm on early. If I'm on later, I'm watching other comics. And I go on and do my set, or I go on and compare. And I'm not joking, I drive back in a completely different mood. I drive back completely uplifted. It's completely different.
So if you could think of like a tip or some suggestion that works for you, that keeps you positive, keeps you upbeat, what do you think that
Do you
might
mean
be?
in a sort of normal, in a regular job, or?
Yeah, no, just for you. When you get up tomorrow morning, if you feel like crap, what are you going to do to snap yourself out of it?
Definitely, it's getting involved with, one, with working, but two, speaking to people. So in my case, I ring Martin, who's Martin Westgate, now works for me full time, and he's great. He's also a comic like me, but works for me full time, doing the admin and looking after some of the acts. We have a chat. I will ring a comic. Often I'll ring Alan, because Alan and I are good friends, or I'll speak to Matt. That's how it gets me going. I'll talk to my comics, not for the sake of it. I mean, I don't ring them in to interrupt their day, but I ring them up because I usually have things to tell them about projects we're looking at, or talking to them about Edinburgh, or can we get a room for Edinburgh this year, or what are we going to do about Edinburgh previews. And I will chat to my acts, or I'll communicate with them. I'll make a couple of calls to a couple of the promoters I deal with, maybe do a FaceTime and do a few emails. And just by getting involved in the business of communicating with fellow comics, possibly a friend as well, my best friend Andy, who's a great mate, I'll give him a ring and say, how are you getting on, what you're up to. So I will talk to people.
Talk to people, keep busy. That sounds like great. What you got in the pipeline? Anything exciting you can share with people that you've got?
Well, I mean,
you, not for your stable, not for other people, for you.
Oh, me personally. Well, there is a short film that I'm in that's got an NDA on it, so I can't. I'm not allowed to even mention the title of the film, but it's just about to be officially released, and it's going to be put up for a load of festivals. And it's a short comedy film that I'm in as an actor. So at last, I got an acting role, but only in the comedy part. So I'm halfway there after.
But you said that
drama at uni.
Because you said you wanted to be an actor, be in a film. You've done it. You're very target driven, and you succeed at whatever you put your mind to, right? And I think part of it with you is that you don't forget, is that you pay your dues, you respect the right people. Like I said, the first time I met you, one of the first things you said to me was, give me a call if you want some gigs. And you didn't even know if I was a comic or not. And it's that thing of, you've got time for people, mate. And that is all about making a difference and being the difference.
Well, one thing, John, I think we've both got is I don't really discern too much between a new act and an act that's been going 25 years as a person. Yeah. As a person, I discern, obviously, I'm aware of the difference between an open spot on their 10th gig and someone that's been headlining for 20 years. But as a person, I will give as much time to the open spot. And that's not to the detriment of a headline act or anybody. But what I mean is, if someone approaches me and says, this is only my 12th gig, I'm a bit nervous, I will spend 10 minutes talking it through with them and chatting to them and whatever, as much as I might spend as long or longer talking to them as I did the headliner that night. So I treat everybody as sort of equal as people.
Brilliant.
And that's because I just think we are all people.
Yeah, I think your attitude very much reflected in your stable. I've got Aideen, she's going to come on in a couple of weeks. Love to get Alan on. I've got Andy White on standby as well.
Yeah,
mate, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. I could talk to you.
Oh, it's always good talking to you, John. I mean, I can even remember specific nights. Remember the night at the comics party we sat and chatted for a long time.
Yeah.
And it's, as you say, you can have these times which don't happen that often, but when they do, you just don't forget them. We sat and talked for maybe a couple of hours and just about everything. And I remember you doing a gig for me, must have been 18, 19 years ago. But I just can't remember the name of the venue. But it was, I think you were doing an opening 20, and I was probably comparing, and you were great that night. But I can remember moments, and that's a great connection, even if it's not somebody you see all the time. But what you were doing is just fantastic work. You know how I feel, John. I mean,
I know that, mate.
Because of what's happened to me, and because my sister was bipolar. I mean, she was struggling from the age of 16. She had several suicide attempts. She was anorexic, you name it. She was sectioned. So having had that, and then having had the losses I've had, I am so supportive of what you do, because you are really the flag bearer for mental health in comedy, and I give you a lot of respect for that.
Thank you, mate. Well, listen, hopefully we'll speak soon. You take care, and all the best, mate. Thank you so much
Thanks,
for your time.
John. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Take care, pal. So that was Geoff Whiting, who is an amazing guy. And like I said, I could talk to him for hours. There's not a comic in the country that hasn't at some stage worked for this guy. And there's not a comic in the country who in some way doesn't owe their continuing work, their success, call it what you will, to Geoff and his clubs. Every Monday, we're here at 7 o'clock. We talk to people I've met in the world of comedy, different people, different levels. There's a guy coming on in a few weeks. He's a new act. I met him on Twitter. But, I thought he's got something interesting to say. But it's not all about just being comedians and being interesting. And it's not all about, having a lively, exciting life. Because sometimes life can be pretty mundane. And January, as we know, is a pretty tough time. We're nearly at the end of it now. If you do feel sad in January, it's not just in your head. It's called seasonally affected disorder and post-holiday blues. It's the time when the credit card bill comes in for Christmas. It's dry January. You're trying to get rid of all your unwanted secret Santa gifts. We've got Omicron. We've got just nonsense, cold weather, rain and snow. But we can get through it. We can get through it. If you are having a tough time, do reach out and get some help. If you don't feel you can get help, hopefully there's someone around you who can look, see, and recognize that you maybe need someone to talk to. And I can't stress the importance of this, and I'm sorry if this sounds sexist, but men and people who define themselves as men, we are not good at opening up and talking. And that's what we're trying to do here at Reading the Signs every Monday night, thanks to WJ, the UK's leading road marking specialists, and the mensradiostation.com. Not forgetting, of course, womensradiostation.com, which have some fantastic shows on as well. Do have a look at the website and just tune in. Just have a little listen. Have it in the background while you're having a cup of tea, cup of coffee, reading the paper, or you're just on your own. You're never on your own. Just tune into us. Have a little listen. There'll always be something interesting or someone interesting. Or if not, someone who's so dull and boring, they're going to make you think, God, my life ain't that bad at all. Listen to this bloke. Well, I'll just give a little mention to my own website, happytohealthyou.com. We believe that you talk, you laugh, you inspire, make them listen by making them laugh. So do have a little look at that. As always, we had a great tip there from Geoff. Geoff's top tip for well-being was about keeping busy and finding people to talk to. And that's really, really important because we're not alone in the battle of life. It's a journey. And on a journey, you have fellow travelers, fellow companions. I was really, really impressed with Griff last week saying, get a dog and go out walking. But his thing, and James Dowdeswell, of course, all involved, in believing what you want to do and having a pet. Don't underestimate the value of a dog or a cat. You can get unrequited love from an animal, and they won't let you down like people will. According to my mother, that was the mantra that she lived by. So do keep the talk going. If you are a man and you haven't talked to one of your mates for a while, give him a call now or send him a message now and just say, how you doing? I was just thinking of you. Because as Kev McCarthy said, talking to people, and Charmin agreed, is about having strong boundaries. And one of your boundaries should be to say that if you're a friend of mine, if I know you, I'm going to be help for you. I'm not going to be part of the problem. I'm going to be part of the solution. Each of us has a role to play. So have a think now. If you can think of anyone you haven't heard from in a while, or that you're worried about, or that you think may be struggling, give them a shout, give them a call. Just reach out to them. Be the difference. Maybe because of my accent, I don't sound sincere enough. If I was more like that, you know what? We're all here together. Why don't you reach out and just make contact with someone? That sounds a bit more sincere than just some bloke from the East End of London going, look, you ain't spoke to your mate in a while. Give him a shout. Do it right now. Take care, Wiz. Well, that's the end of another episode of Reading the Signs with me, Comedy John Ryan. We're here every Monday night at 7 p.m. talking with comedians about mental wellness, mental well-being, and just trying to get the conversation going. What we're trying to do is show that it's good to talk, and we're also trying to show that everybody can go through the same experiences. A massive thank you to the WJ Group who sponsored the show, showing their commitment not just to mental well-being, but also to reaching as broad an audience as possible. It's great to be part of the mensradiostation.com family, so do check us out on the website, on social media. We'll be back next Monday. You take care. Stay safe, everybody.